Chapter 2, Problem 6, Part 2. This is still exercise 215 in the book. Remember, in Part 1, we used a plant-wide rate. So we took the total machine hours and the total overhead and applied the overhead plant-wide at a single rate. And if you remember right, it was $20 per hour. This method that we're doing now for Part 2 says, well, there really is a better way to do this. What we're going to do is we're going to do it by department. So we're going to have one set of costs for overhead for the molding department and a separate for the fabrication department. We're going to do the same exact thing, except instead of combining it, we're going to do one for fabrication, one for molding, and when we price out the jobs, we're going to estimate using two overhead applications, one for fabrication and one for molding. But before we can do that, we have to get there. So, estimated fixed manufacturing overhead for the molding department. And keep in mind, this is for the molding department. The next half of this problem is going to be for the fabrication department. So let's take the fixed manufacturing overhead that they gave us from the molding department. It was $700,000. The variable manufacturing overhead that they gave us was $3 per hour, and they estimated $20,000. So the estimated manufacturing overhead for the molding department was $760,000. Remember, they estimated 20,000 hours, machine hours. So we're going to divide that, the overhead, divided by the amount of hours, and we come up with $38 per hour. So that's dollars per hour for the molding department. We're going to then do the same exact thing for the fabrication department. So, the fabrication department, the fixed manufacturing overhead was $210,000. They estimated the variable to be $1 times 30,000. These are the same numbers we used for the first part. They're the ones that are in your text. So that gives us a total of $240,000. Total overhead for the fabrication department. And make sure you remember that what we're doing now is we're breaking down the overhead by department. This is a fairer way to do it, and many companies do it because they feel it gives them better data for decision making. So the estimated total overhead, $240,000. We're going to have 30,000 machine hours. And it's just label stuff. It just makes life easier. So that's $8 per machine hour for the fabrication department. Now, what we have to do is when we apply the overhead, we have to apply $38 per hour for the molding department. So for all the time that a piece is in the molding department, machine hours in the molding department are multiplied by $38. When it moves to the fabrication department, all the machine hours are multiplied by $8. Other than that, there's nothing very much different about this. We're just doing pretty much the same thing again and again and again. Now let me find my sheet here. It asks us to come up with the direct materials and the direct labor costs. Do I have it down here? I might. If not, I'm just going to flip a hunk of paper over and we're going to do it freehand. There we go. I thought I had it. Okay, this is to be as opposed or not to be. And let's take a look here. Remember the direct labor, this hasn't changed. This was given to us. The direct materials, we have to add that. So the direct materials, and I had to squeeze this in. So we have the direct labor of $360 and $400. We have the direct materials of $700,000 and $550,000. These are the same numbers that we used before. Nothing different, same exact numbers. That's the same, that's the same, that's the same, that's the same. This is the piece that's different. Because notice that we have to now separate out the machine hours in the molding department for each job and the machine hours in the fabrication department for each job. This side over here is job D70. This side over here is job C200. And let me pull that down a little bit so you can see all the numbers. There we go. So, the molding department, we're told that job D70 used 1,400 hours at $38 per hour. That's $532,000 of overhead from the molding department for job D70. And we're told that job C200 used 6,000 hours from the molding department. So 6,000 hours times the 38 is 228,000. The fabrication department, the numbers kind of flop there because D70 only used 6,000 machine hours. So that's 48,000. And C200 uses a lot more machine hours in the fabrication department. That used 24,000 hours at $8, so that's 192,000. And we're just taking the numbers that they applied, they gave us at the very beginning, and we're just running them down step by step. So the total manufacturing cost for D70, $1,640,000. And for C200, $1,370,000. And I just want you to, I'm going to see if I can find the paper. Look at the difference in the cost. Total manufacturing cost for D70 using the plant-wide rate was $1,460. Now it's $1,640. Using the plant-wide rate for C200, it was $1,550,000. Now it's $1,370,000. That's why you do a plant-wide rate if everything is pretty much the same in all departments. But if you have a job like this where one uses much more of a more expensive department Like in this case, apparently whatever goes on in the fabrication department, C200 used a whole lot more of it. And they therefore should carry more of the weight of the overhead, more of the burden. So when you do that, you come up with a slightly different bid price. So the manufacturing cost here was $1,640,000. We're still going by the 150%. That gives us a bid price here of $2,460,000. The manufacturing cost here, $1,370,000 times 150%. We come up with a cost of $2,055,000. Notice that those bid prices are different. They're not a lot different, a couple $100,000, and in a $1 million business, that's not all that much. But many companies feel that this method is superior to this method. They believe this number is more accurate because it reflects more accurately the use of the overhead. I believe you could make that argument either way. You could say, well, it really doesn't make any difference because everybody's got a share in the overhead. The other argument is, well, the products that use more in each department should pay more overhead for that department. So that's 2C. 2D, it says, what is the cost of goods sold? And again, because they had no beginning or no ending inventory, the cost of goods sold is exactly the amount that was advertised or assigned to the manufacturing cost of both. So it would be a combination of these two, total manufacturing cost or cost of goods sold, and that works out to $3,010,000. They had no beginning inventory, they had no ending inventory, they had no work in process. What they made, they sold. The manufacturing costs are the cost of goods sold. The last part, it asks you to think about this and make some comments. Basically, the finer you slice the overhead costs, the more accurate your expenses are recorded. It's also more costly and time consuming because you have to do, suppose we had 3 departments, we would have 3 of these. If we had 5 departments, we could have 5. It can get a bit out of hand.